I told her I was broken before I even realized I'd said it out loud. It wasn't a confession, not really. More like something that slipped between the noise of the rain and the hum of the heater in the back of the repair shop. She didn't answer at first, just kept standing there, holding a cracked ceramic mug I'd offered to fix, some company mug from the 90s with faded lettering and a chipped handle. Her eyes weren't the kind that blinked too much. They lingered, calm, patient, like she'd heard people say worse things in quieter rooms. I worked part-time fixing things people didn't have the heart to throw away. Radios, watches, lamps that only turned on if you hit them just right. I liked the quiet. The glue fumes, the tick of small screws against metal trays. It kept my hands busy. My head less so. That afternoon, she came in wearing a dark coat that made her look like she belonged somewhere colder, quieter. Mid-40s, maybe older, with hair the color of old gold, and a kind of unhurried way of moving that made everyone else in the shop seem clumsy. She smiled. Not the polite kind, but the kind that half forgives you before you've done anything wrong. "It's probably not worth fixing," she'd said, setting the mug down. I shrugged. Maybe not. But if it meant something once, it still does. That was when she looked at me. Really looked. And I swear the air felt heavier. Not romantic. Not then. Just noticed. Like I'd been accidentally seen through a window I didn't know was open. I worked in silence for a while, brushing dust off the crack, mixing epoxy. She stayed, even after I told her it'd take a few minutes. Just leaned against the counter, tracing a fingertip along a scratch in the wood. "Do you fix people too?" she asked after a bit, her voice low, like she didn't want to disturb the sound of the rain outside. "Only the ones who sit still," I said. A joke, kind of. She smiled, but not all the way, the kind of smile that remembers something painful. I wanted to ask what it was. I didn't. Instead, we listened to the rain thicken. When I handed her the mug, the handle still glossy from the glue, her fingers brushed mine, lightly, accidentally. But I felt it too much for it to be nothing. Her nails were clean, unpainted. She wore no ring. The skin on her hand was soft, but lined, like parchment folded many times. "You didn't have to fix it so carefully," she murmured. "Didn't have to," I said. "But it wouldn't have been right otherwise." She nodded, eyes flicking down, then up again, steady, but gentler this time. "You're too careful for someone who says he's broken." That was when the words slipped out. Maybe to prove her wrong. Maybe because they were true. "I am broken." And she, without missing a beat, said quietly, "Then let me be the glue." It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't even comfort. It was said too softly, too naturally, like she hadn't meant to say it at all. Like the words had belonged to someone else long ago and just found their way back. She paid in cash and left, umbrella snapping open as she stepped into the rain. I stood behind the counter, the mug still warm from her hands. There was a faint scent of her perfume in the air, something earthy, like cedar and tea leaves. And though the shop filled again with the buzz of the heater and the creak of the sign outside, I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at me. Not with pity, not with curiosity, but with a kind of quiet understanding that felt dangerously close to hope. That was 3 days ago, the mug still sitting on the shelf. And I keep wondering if she meant what she said, or if she just saw herself in the cracks. She came back on a Thursday, 2 weeks after the mug. No umbrella this time. Just rain in her hair, and that same unhurried calm that made everyone else seem like they were moving too fast. I was sorting through a pile of busted clocks when she appeared in the doorway. The bell above the door stuttered like it was surprised too. "You fix watches, right?" she asked, holding out a small velvet pouch. Her voice had that edge, half casual, half something else, like she wasn't sure if she should have come. "Depends," I said. "What kind of broken are we talking about?" Her mouth curved, faintly. The quiet kind. She set the pouch down and unwrapped a slim silver watch, its glass cracked, the second hand frozen mid-tick. A woman's watch, elegant but worn. I could see where the strap had been replaced, once long ago. "It was my mother's," she said. Then quickly added, "No rush." But her eyes stayed on it, like she couldn't quite let go. I told her I'd take a look, though I knew it wouldn't be simple. The parts were delicate, the kind you had to breathe carefully around. She stayed again, pretending to browse the shelves. I watched her reflection in the glass cabinet. How her shoulders never really dropped. How her fingers fidgeted with her sleeve when she thought I wasn't looking. There was something about the way she held herself, self-contained, but tired in a way that didn't show in her face. Like she'd been holding her breath for years. "You're good with your hands," she said softly, after a while. I looked up. "I fix things. It's not the same." "It is, a little," she murmured. "Takes patience. Takes wanting to make something right." Her tone faltered near the end. That hesitation, the kind that makes silence feel alive, hung between us. I turned back to the watch, not trusting myself to look at her. "Most things don't stay fixed forever," I said. "That's not the point." She stepped closer. "Sometimes it's enough just to try." Her nearness felt like static, not loud, just there. The faint scent of rain on her coat, her hair pulled back messily, a strand brushing her cheek. I noticed her hands again, the same ones that held the mug weeks ago. One small scar near the thumb, a faint tremor when she tucked her hair behind her ear. When I finished, I showed her the watch, working again, quietly ticking. She smiled this time, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You shouldn't have bothered. I didn't think it could be fixed." "You brought it anyway," I said. Her breath hitched, almost invisible. Then she looked down, laughing once, the kind of laugh people use when they're trying not to cry. "I didn't come for the watch," she said, so softly I almost missed it. And before I could answer, she turned, the bell above the door breaking the silence like a whisper that left too soon. That night, I kept hearing that single tick, the sound of something fragile still trying. And I realized I didn't know which of us it belonged to. It started raining again the night she called. The storm had rolled in early, shaking the window panes of the shop, turning the world into a blur of wet glass and half-light. I was closing up, sorting receipts, when the phone buzzed with her name, just her first name, the way she'd typed it into the slip she'd left me in case the watch stops again. Her voice was quiet, like she was talking from another life. "Sorry, I shouldn't call this late." "You're not interrupting," I said, though I was. I had been thinking about her for days. "Everything okay?" A small pause, then the watch stopped again. I didn't believe her. Or maybe I didn't want to. She showed up 20 minutes later, rain clinging to her hair, her coat damp and dark at the shoulders. I offered her a towel. She waved it off with a faint smile. "It's not really the watch," she admitted, finally. I figured. She stood near the counter, rubbing her hands together for warmth, watching me with eyes that were tired but steady. I didn't want to be at home tonight." There was a kind of honesty in that made the air between us shift. I nodded toward the back room. "The heater works better there." We sat across from each other at the small workbench, the light low, the air thick with the scent of metal and old wood. She picked up a loose gear, turned it between her fingers. "Do you ever get tired of fixing things?" she asked. "All the time." "Then why keep doing it?" I hesitated. "Because stopping feels worse." She looked at me then, really looked, and I felt the question she didn't ask sitting heavy in the silence. "Does that apply to people too?" I didn't answer, but she must have seen something in my face because her lips parted like she was about to say something important, something dangerous. Then her phone buzzed. A single vibration, then another. She flinched, turned it over on the table. The name flashed for a second, Daniel. Her jaw tightened. "Just someone I used to know," she said, voice too calm. "You don't have to explain." I wasn't going to. She tried to smile, but it cracked. That's when I noticed her hands trembling slightly. I reached for the towel she'd refused earlier, handed it to her. She took it this time, eyes softening. Our fingers brushed, and for a heartbeat neither of us pulled away. It wasn't much, just contact. But it felt like the kind of mistake that would echo if either of us let it. "Thank you," she whispered, finally. "For what?" "For not asking questions." "I want to," I said, quieter than I meant to. Her gaze held mine, unblinking. "Don't." Outside, thunder cracked close enough to rattle the lights. She startled. I stood without thinking, close enough to feel the heat of her shoulder through her coat. Neither of us moved for a long second. Her breath caught, or maybe mine did. Then she stepped back, almost clumsily, and reached for the door. "I should go." Her voice trembled on the last word, but her hand didn't. The storm swallowed her as soon as she stepped outside. And I stood there in the doorway, the smell of rain and her perfume still tangled in the air, wondering what would have happened if the thunder had waited 1 second longer. She came by on a Sunday. The city was half asleep, streets washed pale by morning rain, the shop still dark except for the small lamp by my workbench. I hadn't opened yet, but she knocked anyway. Not hard, not tentative, just steady. When I unlocked the door, she didn't step inside right away. She stood there with her hands in her coat pockets, eyes somewhere between apology and defiance. "I shouldn't be here," she said. "You said that last time. I meant it then. And now?" She didn't answer, just brushed past me, setting her bag on the counter. The faint scent of her, cedar, rain, something warm beneath it, filled the quiet space. We didn't talk for a while. I pretended to fix something, but my hands weren't doing anything useful. She paced a little, touched random things, a lamp, a cracked frame, a pile of old receipts. Then she stopped, looking at the shelf where her mug still sat, glued cleanly together. "You kept it," she said. "Didn't seem right to throw it away. It was never meant to last." I looked up. "Neither are most things. Doesn't mean we don't hold on to them." That made her laugh, quietly, like something in her cracked. She turned away, wiping at her eye though there were no tears yet. When she spoke again, her voice was low. "You're too young to talk like that. I've met too many people who don't mean what they say. And you think I do?" I shrugged. "You mean something. I just don't know what yet." She turned then, really facing me. "You shouldn't try to." "Why?" "Because this," she gestured vaguely between us, her hand trembling a little. "It's not anything. It can't be. Then why are you here?" That landed. She looked at me like I'd stepped too close, even though I hadn't moved. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe because you don't look at me like I'm finished." Her voice broke on that last word. The clock above the counter ticked, loud enough to fill the silence that followed. I wanted to say something, anything that could make the moment less fragile. But she was staring at the floor now, fingers gripping the edge of the counter, shoulders drawn tight. "You make it hard to breathe when you're quiet like that," she said finally. "I don't mean to. I know." She exhaled. "That's the problem." Something inside me shifted then. Not desire, not even comfort. Just understanding. The kind that hurts because it's mutual. She took a step back, eyes glassy, voice barely holding. "You shouldn't fix people like me." "I don't know how to stop," I said. Her lips parted, a soundless breath, a look that felt like both an ending and a beginning. And then, barely audible, she said, "I think that's why I'm scared of you." She didn't come by for almost a month. I told myself I was fine with that she'd gone back to whatever quiet life she kept just out of sight. But I caught myself checking the door too often, lingering on every ring of the bell that wasn't her. When she finally did return, it wasn't with her usual calm. Her eyes were red, her voice rough around the edges. She held a small envelope, already crumpled from her grip. "I shouldn't be here," she said again. Only this time, she meant it differently. I locked the door without asking why. She stood near the counter, taking shallow breaths, like she was fighting the urge to leave before speaking. "I got a letter," she said finally. "From Daniel." The name I'd seen flash on her phone weeks ago. "He passed away," she continued, staring at the envelope. "His sister found my address. Sent his things. I don't even know why I opened it." I didn't speak. She didn't look at me. She pulled out a folded photograph and set it on the counter between us. Two people smiling awkwardly, arms linked, standing somewhere windy and cold. Him. And her. Younger, softer. He was 24 when that was taken," she whispered. I was 38. The numbers sat there like stones in my chest. She looked up, eyes tired but sharp. "Do you see why I can't be here?" For a long time, I didn't move. The photo between us felt heavier than anything I'd ever fixed. "He looks like you," she said, almost apologetic. "Not the face, exactly. Just the way you stand. The quiet. The trying too hard to seem okay part." "I didn't mean to. I know you didn't." She smiled faintly, but it cracked halfway. "That's what makes it worse." Her hands trembled again as she reached for the photo, then hesitated, leaving it there, like it didn't belong to her anymore. I didn't touch it either. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable this time. It was something else, like the air had thinned, forcing both of us to breathe carefully. I thought I'd buried that version of myself, she said quietly. And then you walked in with your broken things and your steady hands. And suddenly I'm 20 years younger, waiting for something that's already gone. I swallowed hard. I'm not him. I know. Her voice wavered. But you make me remember what it felt like before everything started to fade. The heater clicked on, a small, ordinary sound that felt too loud. She reached out, almost reflexively, and touched the edge of the photo. Not me, just the memory between us. Then she looked up and said, with a calm that broke something in me, "You don't fix me. You just remind me I was once worth fixing." She turned before I could answer, the envelope still on the counter, the door chime trembling behind her. And as the sound faded, I realized something cruelly simple. She hadn't come to see me that night. She'd come to say goodbye to someone who wasn't even alive anymore. She came back near closing, weeks later. No letter this time. No storm. Just the dim glow of the streetlight bleeding through the window, turning her hair to gold dust. I almost didn't recognize her, not because she looked different, but because she finally looked still, like she'd stopped running from something, or maybe decided to stop pretending she wasn't tired. "I walked by twice before coming in," she said. "Didn't know if I had the right to." I smiled small. "You don't need a reason." She stepped closer, unbuttoning her coat with slow, deliberate movements. "I'm not sure what I'm doing here." "Neither am I," said. "But it feels like the right place to be confused." That made her laugh, softly, like the sound had to relearn how to exist. We didn't talk much after that. She wandered around the shop, tracing her fingers along the shelves, the edges of the wooden counter. She stopped in front of the mug again, the same one I'd glued back together months ago. "You kept it," she said. "You said that last time too. And you still didn't throw it away." "Neither did you," I said, nodding at the watch on her wrist, working, ticking quietly. She looked down, smiled faintly. "Guess not." She sat on the stool across from me. For a while, the only sound was the heater and the faint hum of the city outside. "I've been thinking," she said finally. "Maybe what scares me isn't you reminding me of him. Maybe it's that you don't." I met her eyes. "Then what am I reminding you of?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "That I can still feel something without it being a mistake." That landed between us, steady and raw. The shop felt smaller suddenly, like the air had learned how to listen. She reached out, slow, her hand stopping just short of mine. I didn't move at first, not out of hesitation, but reverence. Some moments don't need courage. They just need stillness. When I finally covered her hand with mine, it wasn't dramatic. It just fit, like something that had been waiting quietly to make sense. No promises, no explanations. Just the warmth of her skin and the soft creak of the stool as she leaned a little closer, eyes tired but peaceful. "You don't have to fix me," she whispered. "I know. I'm not asking you to stay. I know that too." She exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and surrender. Her forehead brushed mine, barely there, more breath than touch. And for a long, fragile minute, we just stayed like that, two people too careful to break the quiet they'd finally learned to share. The clock ticked on. The world outside went on raining somewhere else. And in that small, imperfect shop, I realized love didn't have to arrive loudly to matter. Sometimes it just stopped running. It's been 6 months since she last came by. The mug still sits on the shelf. The watch still ticks. And I still think about her. Not constantly, not painfully. Just sometimes, in the quiet parts of the day when the light hits the counter the way it did when she stood there, unsure and alive. She didn't leave dramatically. One evening, she just said she needed to go see the ocean. Said she wanted to remember what distance felt like without it meaning goodbye. I understood. Maybe because I was starting to feel the same, that some people aren't meant to stay, only to steady you until you can walk again. The shop feels different now. Not emptier, just softer. I still fix things, though I take my time more. There's a rhythm to it now, a patience that wasn't there before. I think that's what she gave me. Not love, not loss, but stillness. The kind that doesn't need to be named to be real. Sometimes I catch myself talking to customers the way she talked to me. Quiet, direct, never rushing to fill the silence. I see her gestures in my own hands, her calm in my pauses. It's strange how someone can change the shape of your loneliness without ever trying to fill it. She sends postcards sometimes. Short ones, a photo of some place with water, a scribbled note on the back. No return address. Just a few words like, "The tide was kind today," or "You were right. Some cracks don't need fixing." The first time I got one, I almost didn't open it. Now I keep them in the drawer where the tools go dull, the things I sharpen when I miss her the most. I still don't know what we were. Friends? Confessions that learned how to breathe? Something unnamed that existed in the space between repair and ruin? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what mattered was that, for a little while, two broken things recognized each other and didn't look away. She taught me that love isn't about fixing what's cracked. It's about learning where to hold it so it doesn't fall apart again. Sometimes, when the shop is quiet, I hear that familiar ticking from her watch, the same steady sound she left behind. And in it, I hear a kind of peace I never had before. Maybe that's what healing really is, not being whole again, but being okay with the parts that still hum quietly, even after the storm. If you're listening to this, wherever you are, don't rush to fix everything that feels broken. Some things, and some people, are meant to stay a little unfinished. That's where the light gets in. And if this story found you when you needed it, leave a little something behind. A comment, a word, a crack you've learned to live with. Because maybe that's how we keep each other glued together.